The quiet before the storm. It was raining gently in Los Angeles that evening. The kind of soft rain that doesn't scare anyone away, but still makes people quiet. The streets shimmered under the dim yellow lights, and the sound of soft jazz came from a nearby open window. In the middle of that calm was a man sitting on a bench outside an old theater. He wore a simple black coat, his head was down, and his hands were resting quietly on his lap. It was Keanu Reeves. He had been waiting there for over an hour. Most people wouldn't have noticed him. He wasn't trying to be seen. Looked like someone who had found peace in being unnoticed. But inside his thoughts were not calm. His heart was full of memories, and all of them were about her. Her name was Anna. They had not spoken in over 2 years. What happened between them was not loud, didn't involve shouting or dramatic exits. It ended the way quiet friendships sometimes do, with silence that grows like fog until you can't see each other anymore. But tonight, something had changed. He had found a letter, one he didn't expect. It had been slipped under the door of his apartment that morning. No name, just soft handwriting that said, "I need to see you." Wait for me outside the theater. 7:30. That was it. No explanation, no promises. But it was enough, so he waited. The rain had stopped now. Only the sound of passing cars and distant footsteps filled the air. The theater behind him was old, the kind of place that smelled of velvet and memories. They had seen a film here once, long ago, black and white, French. She had cried at the ending. He hadn't said much. He just handed her a napkin and stayed silent. She told him later, "You always say the right things by saying nothing." Missed her voice more than he could admit. Every time a car slowed down, he lifted his eyes. Every time footsteps came close, his breath caught for a second. But she didn't come. Still he waited. What others didn't know was that this wasn't just about romance. It wasn't about love lost or found. It was deeper. It was about a promise they once made to each other when things were hard back then. Anna had been struggling. Her rise to fame came with pressure. The cameras were everywhere, and people had too many opinions. One night, she had broken down. In a dark hallway behind the stage lights, she sat on the floor and whispered, "I'm scared I'll lose myself." Keanu had sat beside her, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and said, "Then I'll wait for you. No matter how far you drift, I'll be here when you come back." And she believed him. Maybe that was why she had sent that letter now, because deep down, some part of her still believed. But it was now almost 9 p.m. His back ached a little. Bench was cold, and the air had a chill. Still he didn't move. Not because he didn't want to, but because something inside him told him he shouldn't. He looked down at his hands. There was a tremble in his fingers, and he wasn't sure if it was from the cold or the fear. What if she didn't come? If this was some kind of mistake? And then a voice, soft, unsure, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "You really waited." He looked up. There she was. Anna, her hair was damp, her eyes red like she had cried more than once that day. She wore a simple gray coat. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous. Just her tired, raw, and real. Keanu stood up slowly. He didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. She took a few steps closer and sat beside him. The space between them was small, but it felt like crossing an ocean. They sat in silence for a moment, and then she said, "I almost didn't come. I was afraid. Afraid you'd moved on. Afraid you'd forgotten." Keanu turned to her gently and replied, "I told you once. I'll wait." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I left so many things unsaid. I broke things I didn't know how to fix." He nodded. Sometimes silence can be a way of holding things together when words fall apart. Her hand brushed against his. Not on purpose, just barely. But the warmth was there. Anna closed her eyes for a moment, breathed deeply, and whispered, "I didn't come here to ask you to fix anything. I needed to remember who I was. And somehow, you always reminded me." Keanu looked at her face, tired, vulnerable, but strong. And in that moment, he saw her not as the actress on screens, not as the woman the world wanted her to be, but just Anna, the girl who cried during old movies. The one who used to laugh at his dry jokes. It's the one who once said, "Don't forget me, even if I forget myself." He reached into his coat and pulled out something small. A crumpled napkin, old and worn. He handed it to her. She took it, opened it slowly, and her breath caught. It was the same napkin from the theater all those years ago, the one he gave her after the French film. She had wiped her tears with it and drawn a small heart in the corner with lipstick. Back then, it had seemed silly. Now it meant everything. "You kept it," she said softly. "Some things are worth keeping," he answered. They sat together, the night growing colder around them, but the space between them warmer. What neither of them knew was that this night would change everything. It's not because of a grand speech or a dramatic moment, but because of the quiet truth that sometimes the kindest act in the world is simply to wait. And Keanu, he had waited, but what came next, neither of them could have expected. Broken pieces, fragile light. Next morning came with a gray sky and soft wind. The city moved on like it always did. Cars honked, people rushed, coffee shops filled with tired faces. But inside Keanu's apartment, time moved slower. He sat by the window, holding a warm cup of tea. He hadn't slept much, not because of regret, but because of the quiet storm still moving through his heart. Anna had come back. She had looked different, not just older, but wiser, worn. Her smile wasn't as quick as before. Her laugh didn't come easily. But still, it was her. She had left with only a soft thank you for waiting and a promise to meet again the next evening. No long goodbye. No promises. Just a pause, like a breath between words. Keanu stared out the window, remembering every second of last night, the way her voice had cracked, the way her hands had trembled when she held the napkin, the way she had looked at him like someone trying to remember how to feel safe. His phone buzzed once. A message. "Can we meet today? Same place, same time." He smiled gently and typed back, "I'll be there." Meanwhile, across town, Anna sat on the edge of her hotel bed. She hadn't told anyone she was back in the city, not her agent, not her friends. She needed space. She needed to face the person she had once been, before the fame, before the pressure, before the loneliness that fame often brings. She looked in the mirror. Her eyes looked tired. Yes, but there was something else there now, courage. A kind of quiet strength that came from facing fear and still choosing to move forward. She opened her bag and pulled out something small, a worn-down photograph. It was of her and Keanu at a small diner. No makeup, no cameras, just the two of them laughing over cold coffee and bad pancakes. It was taken before things got complicated. Back then, he was her calm. He never told her what to do. He never gave speeches, just listened. He respected her space. And when things got too loud in her life, he offered silence like a gift. But she had left him behind. Not because she didn't care, but because she was afraid she needed to become someone new, feared he wouldn't recognize her when she did. She was wrong. When evening came, the sky looked softer. The clouds had cleared a little and the air smelled like earth and hope. Keanu arrived at the old theater 5 minutes early. He wore the same black coat. This time he brought 2 small paper cups of hot chocolate. He didn't know if she still liked it, but he remembered she once said it reminded her of home. She arrived quietly, wearing a loose sweater and jeans. No makeup, no mask. Just Anna. They sat side by side again, and this time she took the cup from his hand without saying a word. For a while, they just watched people pass. Then she said, "I lost myself, Keanu." Not all at once. Little by little. He didn't answer. He didn't interrupt. He waited. She continued, "I thought fame would make me feel seen. But instead it made me feel invisible in a different way. People saw the version of me they wanted, not who I really was." Keanu looked down at the ground and softly replied, "Sometimes the world rewards masks more than faces." Anna let that sink in. She held the cup tightly, like it was keeping her grounded. "I didn't come back to be saved," she whispered. I came back because I wanted to face the version of me that walked away from you. The version that thought kindness was weakness and silence meant you didn't care. He turned to her, his voice low and steady. I never stopped caring. I just didn't want to hold you back. Anna blinked fast. Her eyes had started to fill. She wasn't someone who cried icily anymore. The industry had taught her how to be cold, how to pretend. But around Keanu, the walls started to shake. Do you hate me? She asked quietly. Never, he said. She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. I thought maybe you would. After all the silence? After all the years? Keanu shook his head gently. Sometimes love is patient. Not always romantic. Not always easy. But patient. They sat in silence again. This time, it felt different. It wasn't empty. It was filled with forgiveness, with healing, with something beginning again. After a while, Anna said, I don't know who I am without the noise, without the roles, without the lights. Keanu answered, Then let's find out together. She turned to him, really turned, and looked him in the eyes. There was something in them. Something steady. Something kind. Something that didn't need to be loud to be strong. I want to fix things, she said. What? Not just with you, but with myself. He smiled, soft and warm. Then start here. Start now. The city kept moving around them. People laughed. Cars rushed by. Life carried on. But in that small corner, by the old theater, two people sat quietly and began to rebuild something that had once been broken. And what neither of them knew was that this second meeting would bring more than healing. It would also bring a test of patience, of truth, of how far kindness could really go. The storm they didn't see coming 3 days passed after that second meeting. Each evening, they sat at the same bench outside the old theater. They didn't talk too much. Sometimes they just watched the sky change colors. Sometimes they shared old stories about movies that made them cry, childhood memories, silly moments on set. Sometimes they just listened to each other breathe. It wasn't about filling the silence. It was about being present, but peace doesn't always last. Not when the world is watching. On the 4th day, everything changed. Anna woke up to her phone buzzing nonstop. Calls, texts, alerts. She didn't want to look, but curiosity and fear pulled her in. Someone had taken a photo of her and Keanu sitting at the bench the night before. The image was everywhere. Tabloids, blogs, social media. People were making up stories, wild ones. Some called it a secret romance. Some said it was a publicity stunt. Yes. Others made cruel comments about how she looked without makeup. Her hand shook as she read through the comments. She looks tired. Why would Keanu waste time on her? Maybe this is just for attention. They're probably filming something. Her chest tightened. She hadn't felt this kind of pressure in a long time. It was like being trapped in a glass room with everyone pointing fingers. The quiet healing she had started with Keanu now felt exposed, like a wound left in the sun. She threw her phone on the bed and covered her face. Across town, Keanu was already at the cafe near his apartment. He had seen the photo too. He didn't care about the rumors. He never did, but he knew Anna would. He knew how words could cut deeper than knives, especially when they came from strangers pretending to know your life. He sent her a message. Ignore the noise. Meet me if you can. Same place. I'm here. It took her hours to reply, but she did. I'll come. Just don't say anything yet. That evening, she showed up in a hoodie and sunglasses, head down, tense. She didn't sit right away. Paced in front of the bench, her hands clenched in frustration. I didn't ask for this, she said sharply, not looking at him. I know, Keanu replied gently. I wanted this to be quiet. Safe. Now look what happened. Anna, look at me. She did. Slowly. This isn't your fault, he said. Her eyes filled again, but she wiped them quickly. They always twist things. Always. I thought maybe I could just live without being watched. You still can, he said softly. But you have to choose peace over noise. Easy for you to say, she snapped, then paused. Sorry. I didn't mean that. He nodded. It's okay. I know it's hard. I've been there too. She sat down finally, her body tired from carrying too much emotion. I don't want to run again, but part of me wants to disappear.
Nice.
Keanu looked at her with deep kindness. Then disappear with me. Just for a little while. No cameras, no headlines, no masks. Just us. Where would we go? She asked. Somewhere no one's. Looking, Anna gave a weak laugh. Does that place even exist anymore? We'll find it, he said. And he meant it. The next morning, they left the city. No goodbyes, no posts, no handlers. They packed light, just a few clothes, some books, and old music. They didn't even take a map. They drove up the coast, the ocean to their left, and the hills to their right. They stopped at small gas stations, roadside diners, quiet towns where no one cared who they were, and for the first time in a long time, Anna laughed without fear. They found a tiny cabin near a lake. No internet, no noise, just wind through the trees and stars that looked closer than they should. They cooked simple meals, read old paperbacks, played card games by candlelight. Keanu told her stories about the years she was gone, the people he met, the lessons he learned. Anna opened up too about the panic attacks, the fake friends, the nights she cried alone in hotel rooms. Each story was a small piece of healing. On the fourth night at the cabin, she said something she hadn't said in years. I'm starting to feel like myself again. Keanu smiled. You never stopped being you, just forgot how to see it. They sat on the wooden steps outside the cabin, looking at the stars. The silence between them was full of warmth, but even there, the world found a way to creep in. One morning, while Keanu was out getting groceries from a nearby farm stand, a car pulled up outside the cabin. Anna was inside, humming to herself. When she saw the headlights through the window, she stepped out slowly. A woman in a black jacket stepped out of the car, holding a camera with a long lens. Anna de Armas, the woman said, trying to sound polite. Can I get a quick word? Just a few questions? The fans want to know. Anna stepped back, her heart racing. Please leave. Come on, the woman pushed. The world is talking about you two again. People want to know what's really going on. Is it love? Is it a comeback? I said, please leave. The woman didn't returned minutes later, saw what was happening, and stepped between them. You need to go, he said firmly. You can't hide forever, the woman said. This is the real world. Anna looked down, her body tense. Again, but Keanu didn't lose his calm. He simply repeated, please leave. After a few more seconds, the woman got back in her car and drove away. But the damage was done. Inside the cabin, Anna sat on the floor, her head in her hands. It's never going to stop, she whispered. Keanu sat beside her. Maybe not. But we can choose how we face it. How? She asked. What do you keep being kind in a world that feeds on cruelty? Keanu didn't answer right away, just took her hand and held it gently. Because kindness isn't about the world, he said. It's about who you are when no one's watching. Closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek, and for the first time, she didn't wipe it away. That night, they made a decision. They would go back to the city, not to run, but to walk into the storm together. Not as stars, not as victims, but as people who had chosen to live with honesty, humility, and kindness. And even if the world didn't understand, they would still stand side by side. The return they didn't plan for when Keanu and Anna returned to Los Angeles, it was quiet at first. No reporters outside, no flashing lights. It almost felt like the world had forgotten, but they hadn't. The truth was, people were watching more than ever. But this time, they were watching differently. Anna walked through the front door of her small apartment, the one she had left untouched for almost a year. Dust had gathered on the shelves, a single plant had dried up, and an old photo of her and her grandmother sat on the kitchen table. She picked it up gently and smiled. I'm home, she whispered. Keanu stood behind her. You ready for this? She turned to him. I'm not sure, but I think I need to stop hiding. He nodded. Then you're stronger than most. They spent the next few days in quiet rhythm, shopping for groceries, cooking meals even. Going for early morning walks where the streets were still half asleep. No disguises, no hiding. Just the two of them, walking side by side like old friends. But the calm didn't last. One evening, while they were leaving a bookstore downtown, a young girl with wide eyes approached Anna. She looked nervous, holding a notebook in her hand. "Are you really Ana de Armas?" she asked softly. Anna froze. She hadn't done a fan interaction in almost a year. She didn't know what to say. "Yes," she finally replied. The girl smiled, her eyes shining. "I just wanted to say thank you. Not for your movies, but for coming back, for being real. I saw the photo of you crying, and it made me feel like it's okay to not be perfect." Anna didn't know what to say. Her heart swelled with emotion. She reached out and hugged the girl. "Thank you for saying that." When the girl left, Keanu looked at Anna. "You okay?" "Better than okay," she said. "For the first time, I feel seen in the right way." That moment planted something in Anna. A small but powerful seed. The idea that maybe her story could help someone else, not just as a celebrity, but as a person who had broken, healed, and kept going. A few days later, she made a decision. She called her agent and said, "I don't want roles right now. I want to speak." "Speak?" the agent asked. "Yes, want to share my story, the real one." Soon Anna was invited to speak at a small mental health forum in Los Angeles. No red carpets, no flashing lights, just a stage, a microphone, and a room full of people who needed to hear something real. The night of the forum, she stood backstage, heart pounding. Keanu stood beside her, calm as always. "What if I mess up?" she whispered. "Then you mess up," he replied. "And you keep speaking, because truth doesn't need to be perfect." She smiled nervously, took a deep breath, and stepped on stage. The room fell quiet as she began. "Hi, my name is Anna. You might know me from movies or photos. But tonight, I want to talk about the part of me no one sees." Her voice shook at first, but with each word it grew steadier. She talked about the pressure, the fear, the loneliness of being in the spotlight. She talked about leaving, breaking, and forgetting who she was. And then she talked about the bench outside the theater, about the man who waited in silence, expecting nothing but hoping everything. "I learned that real strength doesn't come from being seen," she said, "but from being honest, especially when it's hard." The room gave her a standing ovation. After the talk, person after person came to her. Young actors, college students, single mothers, people from every walk of life. All of them saying the same thing in different ways. "Thank you for reminding us that we can be soft and strong." Keanu watched from a corner, smiling quietly. He didn't need to be in the spotlight. He never had. His joy came from watching others rise, especially those he cared about. That night, as they walked home, Anna said, "I never thought my pain could help someone else." The pain that is shared, Keanu said, often becomes light for someone else's darkness. She looked at him with deep warmth. "You've always been light, haven't you?" He shook his head slowly. "I've just learned how to walk through the dark." But not everyone was kind. A week later, a magazine published a harsh piece. It accused Anna of using vulnerability for fame. It claimed Keanu was being used for image. The article was filled with cruel words and twisting of facts. Anna read the article in silence. For a moment, the old fear came back. The walls she had torn down began to rise again. "Maybe this was a mistake," she whispered. Keanu took the article from her hands and gently tore it in half. "The people who need your story," he said, "don't care about magazines. They care about truth." Anna nodded, fighting back tears. "But it still hurts." "Then let it hurt," he replied. "And keep going anyway." That night, Anna posted a short video online. No makeup, script. To anyone who feels like their story doesn't matter, like their pain is too much, or like they don't belong. You do. Your story matters. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're wrong. The video went viral, not because she was famous, but because she was real. More speaking invites followed. Interviews, podcasts, people weren't asking about movies anymore. They were asking about healing, about resilience, about kindness. And through it all, Keanu stayed beside her, quietly, steadily, without needing credit. One night, Anna turned to him and said, "You know, the bench outside that theater changed everything." "You changed," he said. "The bench just gave you space to remember who you are." She smiled, leaned against his shoulder, and whispered, "You waited for me. And I'll never forget that." Was that another test was coming? One that would shake everything again? Not from the outside, but from within. Ghosts of the quiet Kindeth days that followed felt calm on the outside. Anna smiled more. She walked with purpose. She had started journaling again, something she hadn't done in years. Keanu encouraged her without ever pushing. He stayed nearby, like a steady lighthouse when waters threatened to rise again. But even the strongest hearts can hide quiet storms one morning. Anna sat alone in her kitchen, a cup of tea untouched in front of her. Her eyes were fixed on the window, but she wasn't really seeing the world outside. She was seeing something else. A moment she had buried deep. A memory. It was from 2 years ago, during the height of her fame. She had been at an award show. The lights were blinding, the cameras endless, the fake smiles exhausting. And behind that stage, just before walking out, she had broken. No one saw her. She had hidden in a bathroom stall, tears streaming silently. And she had whispered to herself, "I don't know who I am anymore." That voice, small, afraid, alone, still echoed inside her. She thought she had healed. But healing, she was learning, wasn't a straight road. It twisted. It circled. Back. Sometimes it whispered doubts when you thought you were finally strong. When Keanu arrived that morning, he noticed right away. She didn't smile. She didn't greet him. She just sat there quiet. He didn't ask what was wrong. Simply poured himself tea, sat beside her and waited. After a long silence, she spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be okay, like the world? Thinks you're fine, but inside, you're still searching?" Keanu nodded slowly. "Every day." She turned to him, surprised. "Even now. Especially now," he said. "The world sees calm. But inside, we're all carrying something." Anna looked down at her hands. "I thought I was past this. But the truth is, I'm scared. Scared I'll fall again. Scared people will find out I'm not as strong as I look." Keanu placed his hand gently over hers. "You're not supposed to be perfect, Anna. You're supposed to be real." "What if being real costs me everything?" she whispered. "Then the things it costs weren't meant to stay," he said softly. "And the things that stay there, the ones that matter." Tears welled in her eyes. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes when you realize someone understands the pain you haven't spoken aloud. "I have this fear," she said. "One day you'll see all of me, the weak parts, the lost parts, and you'll leave too." Keanu didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. A photo. It was from the cabin. Showed Anna sitting by the lake, wrapped in a blanket, hair messy, no makeup, smiling softly into the wind. "I took this on the second morning," he said. "You didn't notice?" Anna looked at the photo. "Why?" "Because that was the moment I realized you weren't broken. You were just finding your way back." She held the photo close, her fingers shaking slightly. "Keanu," she said, "what did you see in me back then, when I left?" "I saw someone brave enough to walk away when she needed space, and kind enough to return when it mattered." She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "But I hurt you." "Yes," he said. "But pain shared with honesty becomes something else. It becomes understanding." They sat together for a while in silence, until Anna finally spoke again. "We go back to the theater?" she asked. He smiled gently. "No." She nodded. "I think I need to remember why I came back." That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, they returned to the same old bench outside the theater. It hadn't changed. Same chipped wood, same soft glow from the nearby streetlight. The city moved around them, but for a moment, it felt like time had paused. Anna sat slowly. She looked up at the marquee, empty now, the letters long gone and breathed in the memory. This place, she said softly. It saved me. No, Keanu said gently. You saved you. This place just gave you permission. Down at her hands, I still carry shame. Not just for leaving, God, but for all the things I became when I was lost. You're not alone, he replied. We all carry pieces of our past. The question is, do we hide them or do we let them teach us? Anna looked at him deeply. He never asked for anything in return, not even when I came back. Because real love, he said, doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with presence. That word echoed in her heart. Presence. Not perfection. Not fame. Not approval. Just showing up. Especially when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That night, after they returned home, Anna wrote something in her journal. Single sentence. I'm not fully healed, but I'm finally honest. But even as she wrote those words, a knock came at the door. A letter, no name, no stamp. Just her name in neat handwriting. She opened it slowly. The message inside was short, only one line. You think you've escaped your past? Waiting, her heart stopped. She read it again. Keanu saw her face pale. Anna, what is it? She handed him the note. He read it, then looked at her. Do you know who sent this? Anna didn't answer right away. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, I think I do. The night she finally looked back, letter sat on the table between them, its message burning quietly into the air. Outside, the city lights flickered like little warnings. Inside, the silence grew thick. Keanu's eyes stayed on Anna. She looked. Distant, like part of her had already drifted back into an old, dark place. Anna, he said softly, who do you think sent it? Her fingers trembled slightly. There's only one person who used to write like that. Same paper. Same tone. Keanu waited. His name was Simon, she said at last. He was a producer. I worked with him when I first started out, before things got big. Before anyone knew my name, she paused. He was the first person who ever made me feel small. Keanu didn't speak. He knew this was something she needed to let out on her own. I was young, she continued, eager, hopeful, and he knew it. He praised me in front of others, but when we were alone, he'd say things that chipped away at me. Little comments, little controls, like, you smile too wide, it looks fake, or, you should be more like her. She knows how to act like a woman. Her voice shook. He never touched me, never shouted, but he made me feel like everything. I wasn't enough. And worse, like I owed him for every chance he gave me. Keanu's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. And now he's come back? I don't know, she whispered. Maybe he never left. Maybe he's just been waiting for the right moment to make me afraid again. Keanu stood, walked to the window, and then turned back to her. Do you want to leave again? Keanu shook. Her head, no. Not this time. He nodded. Then we face it. The next morning, they went to a lawyer not to start a fight, but to understand their rights, to protect her voice. Anna gave the letter to them. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. And this time, she knew she couldn't find peace by hiding. That evening, Anna posted again. Not a speech, not a video, just words. To anyone who tries to make you feel small, I see you, and I will not be silent. The message reached thousands, then millions. Messages poured in other actors, crew members, assistants, fans, all sharing their own quiet stories of control, shame, of moments they were made to feel like Les.Na didn't answer every message. She couldn't, but she read them. And with each one, she felt something shift inside her. Not guilt, not fear. Strength. Keanu watched her change quietly, not into someone new, but into someone she had once been before the fear, before the masks, before the silence. One night as they sat on her rooftop, wrapped in a blanket, Anna looked up at the stars and asked, Do you believe people can heal without forgetting? Keanu answered, I think the people who truly heal are the ones who remember everything and choose kindness anyway. She nodded slowly. You know, when I left you years ago, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I had to become someone different to survive. Maybe you did, he said. But the real you never disappeared. Anna turned to him, her eyes clear now. And you waited for me too. He didn't reply, just smiled. They didn't need to say anything else. A year later, Anna released a short film, her first as a writer and director. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't glamorous. It was quiet, raw, and honest. It told the story of a young woman who forgets who she is in a loud, demanding world, and the man who waits for her in silence, never asking her to change, only hoping she finds her way back. The film was called The Bench. It won no awards, but it reached hearts. People wrote letters. People cried. People said, this is the kind of story we need. Anna didn't care about the praise. What mattered was that she told the truth. On the day of the private screening, only a few close friends were invited. Keanu sat in the back row, watching her face as the credits rolled. She wasn't crying. She wasn't nervous. She looked whole. Afterward, as the room cleared out, she walked over to him. You know, she said, the girl in that film isn't just me. I know, he replied gently. And the man who waits, she added, he's not just you. Keanu tilted. His head, no, she smiled. He's every person who chooses love over control, patience over pride, presence over power. Keanu smiled back. Then maybe the world needs more people like him, she nodded, and more stories like ours. They left the theater quietly. No crowd, no flashing lights, just two people walking, side by side in a world that finally felt real. As they reached the same old bench one last time, they sat down without a word. Anna leaned her head on his shoulder. The city moved around them, but they stayed still. The sky above them was soft, with stars, and for the first time in a long time, Anna didn't feel watched. She felt seen, truly deeply seen.